Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, November 1. Jim Goodwin SFA ban reduced. Report by David Irvin. Jim Goodwin has had his SFA ban reduced after an Aberdeen appeal. The Pittodrie boss had been served an 8-game suspension after he accused Ryan Porteous of blatant cheating. Goodwin was due to face an immediate 6-game ban, with a further 2 matches suspended until the end of the season. Furious Aberdeen Chiefs appealed the ban after being left extremely disappointed at the level of sanction imposed, and the SFA have now reduced the punishment to a 3-match immediate ban, with a further 2 matches suspended until the end of the season. Goodwin already sat out the match against Dundee United, so will only need to serve 2 more touchline bans. The Scottish FA disciplinary hearing update read, partially upheld, 3 matches immediate suspension, and 2 matches suspended until the end of season. The appellate tribunal take into account the 1 match already served as part of the initial sanction, and therefore instruct this is deducted from the new sanction. Goodwin had previously commented, "I don't know how many times the boy Porteous can get away with that kind of stuff. We showed our players a number of instances when Porteous has won penalties like that in the past. People will say he's good at it and he's clever, but it's blatant cheating as far as I'm concerned, and it's cost my team points." An Aberdeen statement after the initial ban read, "After being informed of the decision of the tribunal, the club is extremely disappointed at the level of sanction imposed on Jim and are taking it very seriously. We do not expect to get the written reasons behind the decision until next week, but we will be appealing this decision." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, November 1. Emotional Heysel interview sheds light on plight of the great journeyman, says Nick Rodger. Remember when changing the clocks required a fair bit of coordinated endeavour? Off you'd shuffle, gently birling back the hands of numerous timepieces in various rooms, while reminding your other half not to fiddle with the little one on the mahogany chest that sits next to the gaudy, hinged trinket box Auntie Doreen brought back from Lanzarote, because you forgot to put it forward in the spring, and if you put it back now, it will be all out of kilter. You get the idea? These days, of course, much of this clock-changing malarkey is performed automatically by our smart aleck gizmos and gadgets, as their tyrannical march towards rendering us obsolete roars on with the clumping gusto of an invading army. The other day, for instance, I booted up my laptop and was greeted by a smug little notification informing me that Windows has updated your clock. It was another gentle yet harrowing reminder of my meek and ongoing descent into irrelevancy. Even my own sneering computer thinks I'm a doddering, incompetent Luddite who is unable to change the bloomin' time by an hour. The end is nigh. It's the end of the road, meanwhile, for the regular DP World Tour season, which drew to a conclusion in Portugal on Sunday. There are still 2 big money events to come for the leading lot on the order of merit, in South Africa and Dubai. But for the rank and file, it's either a little bit of downtime or a return to the frightful scramble of the qualifying school. If you watched any of the Portugal Masters over the weekend, you may have caught a very emotional interview with the German golfer Sebastian Heisel. He was in with a chance of winning heading into the closing day. He eventually finished 5th. But after his 3rd round, he announced he was retiring from the tour, regardless of the outcome, to move into coaching. Asked to reflect on his time at the top table, the 34-year-old, with his lip quivering, his voice breaking, and his eyes welling up, said, "Difficult. I'm more of a journeyman than anything. It means a lot of walk off with a good week." It was an honourable, courageous, and dignified admission from a man who has pursued his dream, but has now decided to venture down another golfing path. His interview would, no doubt, have struck a chord with countless professionals who have tried and toiled again at a frighteningly competitive and often cruel and lonely coalface. This was another peek into the hard reality of touring life. Difficult, as Heisel said, can be an understatement. Heisel was a 4-time winner on the 3rd tier of European professional golf and earned a victory on the 2nd Division Challenge Tour in 2019. He went to the qualifying school half a dozen times, and his best finish on the rankings of the main European circuit was 110th. I wouldn't be surprised if you're reading this and muttering, "Who is this bloke he's blethering on about?" In this hellishly difficult, unforgiving business of complex demands, we tend to evaluate careers on money and wins. It's important, though, to respect these journeymen who have reached a level that thousands aspire to, yet never reach. They may not attain superstar status, not many golfers do, but their devotion, drive and discipline towards their tireless labours deserve plenty of acclaim, even if they never savour the ultimate rewards. Hopefully Heisel finds fulfilment in his new career as a coach. As the German took his bow, one of Scotland's great survivors, David Drysdale, finally lost the tour card he has held for 2 decades. A share of 8th was a spirited final flourish, but it wasn't enough to stave off a return to stage 2 of the Q School this week. At least he'll go with a little purposeful spring in his step after 4 sturdy rounds on the Algarve. Speaking to Drysdale on the phone last week ahead of the Portuguese event, the 47-year-old was his usual canny self, accepting his predicament and being well aware of the fine margins and fickle fortunes of this funny old game. After many years on tour, Drysdale never gets too up or too down, and maintains an admirable sense of level-headed middle ground. That will stand him in good stead for the exacting rigmarole of the dreaded qualifying school process, which can be as hair-raising as Suella Braverman's use of her emails. His unwavering commitment to his craft, meanwhile, continues to stoke the competitive fires. He said, "I still enjoy the practice, and the grind and the drive to keep improving is still there." Having clocked up 574 tour events during 21 years as a card holder, he never managed a win. Drysdale is not ready to give it all up yet. The term journeyman can often be interpreted as damning someone with faint praise, but there will be any amount of wannabe tour pros starting off who wouldn't mind being labelled a journeyman if it meant a career of commendable longevity. Gaining a foothold in the paid ranks and clambering up the ladder is hard enough. Staying in the top tier season after season is even harder. Drysdale's tenure has been temporarily interrupted, but perseverance and pride remain entrenched in his golfing character. Haste ye back, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, November 1. On loan, Celtic's Mikey Johnson inspires Portuguese win. Report by David Irvin. Celtic starlet Mikey Johnson inspired loan club Vitória Guimarães to victory with a stunning showing against Famalicão. The 23-year-old Parkhead winger is currently on a season-long loan with the Portuguese club, and in Liga NOS action he was on the scoresheet and provided an assist in a 3-2 win. Johnson netted the opener for Vitória with a curling finish into the bottom corner from the edge of the box. Nelson da Luz then scored a brace to earn the club victory. Johnson played a vital role in da Luz's second strike as he teed up his teammate to hit the eventual winger. The winger has scored twice for Vitória before this match, as he scored a double in Ataque de Portugal win over Canellas 2010 earlier this month. He had also provided one assist in league action before doubling his season tally. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, November 1. Mid-season report cards. How Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh are shaping up. Report by Stuart Bathgate. Holidays always feel better if you leave your work on a high note, and both Glasgow and Edinburgh did exactly that at the weekend in their last outings before the United Rugby Championships mid-term break. The Warriors racked up the bigger tally, beating Benetton 37-0 at home. But in a league where away victories are a very valuable commodity, Edinburgh arguably had a more impressive result, winning 25-17 at Cardiff. But the bottom line is that both teams can take considerable satisfaction from those performances, especially as they were without so many leading players because of international duty. Glasgow, who have a game in hand on most of the teams above them, are now 7th in the 16-team table. They have won their 3 home games and lost 3 on the road, so there are no prizes for guessing where head coach Franco Smith thinks the improvement needs to come. It's special to play at Scotstoun, the South African said after Friday night's victory, when asked to analyse the discrepancy between home and away results. The guys know the environment, they love the support, and they love to play in front of the crowd. I think away from home, we came up against difficult situations and it was managed wrong. Now we've still got to grow that character, even if it's managed wrong. How do we get back from 2 scores down? I honestly think it's a mentality thing more than it's a coaching or a technical thing or a game plan. Smith, appointed in August, only had 1 warm-up match against the semi-pro Ayrshire Bulls in which to prepare his team for the new URC campaign. That led to an undercooked display in the opening league fixture a 33-11 defeat by Benetton in Treviso, but the coach is convinced that his team have learned a lot since then. He explained, "The squad could not have understood what the intent from my side was until we had played, and I think with the video material from that Benetton game, we were able to show them where the opportunities lay and what we wanted, and they embraced that against Cardiff in their next game, where we won 52-24. Now the players know exactly what areas of the game we are working at." Having expressed his satisfaction with that improvement, however, Smith insisted his team still have a long way to go if they are to progress from playoff hopefuls to title contenders. He continued, "We left 4 or 5 tries out there against Benetton. We got nothing from 5 entries in the first 20 minutes, which could already have broken the camel's back. There are a lot of execution errors to deal with. Those errors cost us, and we cannot allow that if we want to be a Leinster, for example. This is just the beginning, hopefully." Smith will have a chance to measure his team's progress against the unbeaten league leaders in Dublin when the URC resumes on Saturday 26th, while Edinburgh visit Benetton on the same day on their first match back. He continued, 2 places and 7 points ahead of our Scottish rivals. Mike Blair's side have 4 wins from their 7 games, 2 of them away. They have also earned losing bonus points in South Africa against the Bulls and at home to the Lions. "I think I am reasonably happy," he said after Sunday's win at the Arms Park. "It's one of those ones. If you'd been given this at the start of the season, you probably would have taken it. But at the same time, as we sit where we are, I'm thinking, God, that Lions game, we let that one slip. Or had we seen out the last 5 minutes of the Bulls game, where would we have been? But at the same time, we have played some good rugby. I think our performances have been consistent. Obviously, the last 10 or 15 minutes against the Lions could have gone better. But I think in terms of what we're putting on the pitch, we are finding a level of consistency, which is great." After going behind and losing Charlie Savala to the sin bin in the last minute of the first half in the Welsh capital, Edinburgh were faced with exactly the kind of test of character of which Smith spoke. They passed it too, showing patience and maturity to solve the things that had gone wrong in the first half. Man of the match Chris Dean said, "We talked a lot about just being calm in every moment and trusting in the process, trusting that we are a good team, trusting the individuals around you to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And it felt like that on the pitch. Everyone was calm, collected, knew their roles, knew their jobs, and then executed them, which is what we're looking for as a team." Report by Stuart Bathgate. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Former Celtic ace in brutal Rangers administration swipe. Report by Ewan Payton. Former Celtic star Moussa Dembele could not resist a cheeky pop at Rangers following their defeat to Ajax last night. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's side officially went down as the worst ever side to compete in the Champions League group stages. This was after 6 defeats in 6 games, a goals against column of 22, and managing just 2 in reply. Tuesday evening's match finished 3-1 to Ajax, with the Dutch outfit strolling through the game. And former Hoops fans' favourite Dembele wasted little time in winding up Rangers over their latest European loss, pointing to their previous troubles around 10 years ago. Piling on the misery, the French striker wrote on Twitter, "After all, it was the first ever Champions League campaign in their history. Well done to them, since 2012. This, of course, is in reference to Rangers going into administration and then liquidation in 2012. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Steven Gerrard to Rangers as bookies slash odds on next manager market. Report by Ewan Payton. Steven Gerrard has been installed as the favourite to become the next Rangers manager. Bookmakers have slashed the former Ibrox boss odds on returning to the gig, with pressure mounting on Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Rangers exited the Champions League last night. They officially went down as the worst ever side to compete in the group stages. The unwanted history came after 6 defeats from 6 games, 22 goals conceded, and only scoring 2 in reply. As a result, Betfair have Van Bronckhorst at odds on to leave the club next year. In turn, they have placed Gerrard as the early favourite to replace him. His odds have been made available at the short price of 2-1. Other contenders to boss Rangers next include Michael Beale at 4-1, Sean Dyche at 8-1, and Gary McAllister 10-1. Betfair spokesperson Sam Romsbottom said, "Rangers officially became the Champions League's worst ever team after Tuesday's defeat, having lost all 6 group stage games with a -20 goal difference." It has heaped the pressure on manager Giovanni van Bronckhorst, who is odds on at 4-7 to leave next year and 4-1 to go in the next 2 months. Van Bronckhorst's predecessor Steven Gerrard is a 2-1 favourite to return to the Ibrox dugout, with Michael Beale 4-1 and Sean Dyche 8-1 to be the next Rangers boss. Kjetso Knudsen has been placed at 12-1. Michael O'Neill is available at 14s, while Chris Wilder is a 16-1 shot. The odds for which year Van Bronckhorst will leave Rangers are 2022, 4-1, 2023, 4-7, 2024 or later, 9-4. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Ali McCoist hits out at Rangers' unacceptable performance. Report by Ewan Payton. Ali McCoist was left unhappy with one particular aspect of Rangers' dismal Champions League campaign this season. The former Ibrox boss, like most others, can accept being defeated by better opposition. The quality and depth in Napoli, Liverpool and Ajax shone through in every single one of Rangers' 6 group matches. This was compounded last night when the latter ran out comfortable 3-1 winners at Ibrox, as Rangers flopped out of the tournament as the worst to ever compete in it. However, the one thing that really irked McCoist was the lack of running. He could not accept other teams working harder than Rangers. He told TalkSport, "The level of one or two of the performances were completely unacceptable. Out of the whole campaign, I can only really remember a reasonable hour against Napoli at home and an acceptable 45 or 55 minutes against Liverpool at home. Recruitment from Rangers has not been good at all. You lose Bassey to Ajax. You lose Aribo to Southampton. You lose Patterson to Everton. You lose Balogun, who for some reason was not offered a contract, to QPR. You lose your best centre-half through injury. You end up playing against Ajax in the Champions League with a young kid at centre-back, accompanied by a midfielder on loan. You have no chance, absolutely no chance. There have been a couple of statistics that disappointed me, but the big one is the running stats. In every game, the opposition have run more than Rangers. I find that difficult to accept, particularly when you don't have the majority of possession. If you have that, then common sense would indicate the opposition have to run about more than you. So Rangers' running stats should have been better. They have been poor. A bigger concern for me would be Rangers' level of performance at Celtic Park in a couple of league games. The results in the Champions League have disappointed me. One or two of them have shocked me. But I'm not overly concerned or surprised both teams have finished bottom of the group. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Matt O'Reilly vows to stake late claim for Denmark World Cup squad. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Matt O'Reilly has vowed to stake a claim for inclusion in Denmark's squad for the Qatar 2022 finals by helping Celtic to pull off an upset against Champions League holders Real Madrid in the Bernabeu tonight. O'Reilly was delighted for his Parkhead teammate Daisen Maeda when the Japanese forward was included in his country's pool of players for the World Cup in the Middle East, and disappointed that Ryo Hatate and Kyogo Furuhashi were omitted. The playmaker, who has dropped back into the central defensive midfielder role in the absence of his injured captain Callum McGregor in recent weeks, feels he has done well enough both at home and abroad this season to get the nod from his national coach Kasper Hulmand next week. However, the London-born Dane, who qualifies to play for the Scandinavian side through his mother, thinks that a standout performance against Carlo Ancelotti's superstars in Spain, in a match that will be shown live around the globe, will do his cause no harm at all. The uncapped 21-year-old said at Celtic's pre-match press conference last night, "We find out who is in the Denmark squad on the 7th. There's a chance that I will go, and there's a chance that I won't. I'm not exactly sure what will happen. I am in a good position to show what I can do, but I am not trying to put too much pressure on myself. I think I have performed pretty well throughout this season in general, consistency-wise, so this is another chance to kind of add to the foundations I have built, and if all goes well, I go. I suppose I can plant a seed in the coach's mind at the 11th hour, but I hope I have planted enough seeds to show what I am about at this stage. I'll try and do the same. I always do. We'll see what happens." O'Reilly was stunned when Hatate and Furuhashi were omitted from Japan's squad for Qatar 2022, but he is confident that both men will perform to their usual high level in the final Group F match against Real tonight. He said, "Kyogo was still in really good spirits in training, and Rio was himself as well, so that's a good thing. Of course we are all happy for Daisen as well. Naturally, I was a bit surprised it was only Daisen, because I feel all three have performed at a really high level. I am sure they will naturally be disappointed, but again, football is a crazy game, and these things happen." Celtic's chances of recording a victory over Real in the Bernabeu tonight were dealt a blow when their stand-in skipper was ruled out by a minor knee injury he picked up in the cinch Premiership win against Livingston on the artificial pitch at Amon Vale on Sunday. However, O'Reilly is confident they can cope without the centre-half and finish what has been a frustrating Champions League campaign on a high with a victory if they perform to the same level as they have in their previous group games and convert the scoring opportunities they create in the final third. He said, "That has been the theme of most of our games. Real Madrid are probably the highest level opposition overall in terms of our group and what they have achieved. So we know if we want to win, we are going to have to be at our very best. We know when we have a chance, it is about taking it now and being ruthless. The message in Scotland just now is about us being as ruthless as we can be, so that when we play Champions League, it transfers as well. I think throughout the group, individually and collectively, we have improved. People have imposed themselves on games naturally with experience. It is obviously the biggest stage, so sometimes it can take a game to settle in. Although I do think in that first game, we definitely imposed our football on the game. It is just a matter of maintaining it for 90 minutes. If we can do that, I think we have got a good chance of winning the game. I think you learn things as you go. In the first game, I thought they were very good at managing the game, especially in the second half, when they had their lead. They just controlled possession. We could have been a bit more aggressive, so you learn things like that. Obviously, coming from the Scottish League to here, you learn the game can be very different. It is probably slightly more open in a sense. In Scotland, we are used to having teams in a low block, just waiting for us to attack them. Whereas here, they are probably a bit more expansive with how they play, which I personally enjoy more, because I feel the game is a bit more flowing. So yes, you definitely learn a lot more. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Chris Boyd delighted. Rangers Champions League run is over. Report by Ewan Payton. Chris Boyd admits he's pleased Rangers Champions League campaign is over. Following last year's ultimate high on the European front, the tables turned for the Ibrox club in a short space of time. They exited the competition as the worst ever team to take part in the group stages. Their record reads 6 defeats, 22 goals conceded, and only 2 scored. Boyd appeared on Sky Sports as he reported on the game, and he looked glum, but revealed his delight that his former side's European campaign was over for the season. And he said, "I know that you don't need to be telling me this. I've had enough of it. I'm going to have to listen to it for a long time. Rangers fans will just be delighted this campaign is over. It's been a disaster from the start, when you go back to the Johan Cruyff Arena, and it's just got worse from there." Rangers built a lot of confidence on the back of the Europa League run last year. Their confidence has been dented this year, and rightly so, but you've got to use it as a learning curve and bounce back and be part of the Champions League year in, year out. I have said it before, I don't think Rangers can go and get through to the last 16, but there's no need to say they can't go in and fight for that Europa League spot. This year, they've come up against Liverpool and Napoli. I don't think Ajax are magnificent, but they've shown they're way better than Rangers are. Rangers have been punished for poor defending throughout the competition, and it's been a disappointing campaign. They've got 3 massive league games before the World Cup, and they're going to have to get 9 points from them. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Scotland to play England in 150th anniversary match. Report by Ewan Payton. Scotland will lock horns with England next year in a special commemorative match. Scottish football's 150th anniversary celebrations will culminate in September 2023 with a heritage game between Scotland and England's men's team at Hampden Park. The game will be played on Tuesday 12th of September with a 7:45 p.m. kick-off. It will be part of the year-long calendar of events from the Scottish FA to celebrate the history of Scottish football. The original contest is recognised by FIFA as football's first ever international match, as 4,000 supporters packed into the West of Scotland Cricket Club in Glasgow. Scottish FA President Rod Petrie said, "We look forward to welcoming England to Hampden Park to celebrate one of sport's oldest rivalries as we mark 150 years of Scottish football. Everyone who enjoys Scottish football today, in any capacity, owes a debt of gratitude to the pioneers of international football, in whose footsteps we are fortunate to follow. I have no doubt that this occasion will capture the imagination of the supporters and that they will provide the team with the full backing throughout our calendar of fixtures next year." Scotland men's national team head coach Steve Clarke said, "This fixture is enshrined in world football's history, the first ever international football match, and I will be proud to lead our team out at Hampden as part of the 150th anniversary celebrations of our national game. The next chapter of the oldest rivalry in football will be a special occasion for our players and fans, especially after the recent experience at Wembley during UEFA Euro 2020. We have an exciting UEFA Euro 2024 qualifying campaign ahead of us next year, along with promotion to UEFA Nations League Group A, and I'm sure playing England at Hampden Park will be a welcome addition to our programme of fixtures. Ticket details for members and non-members of the Scotland Supporters Club are available on the Scottish FA website." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 2. Van Bronckhorst in Ajax rest comparison. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers created unwanted history at Ibrox last night. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's men officially became the worst ever side to take part in the Champions League group stages. Rangers finished all 6 group games with some grim readings: 0 points, 22 goals conceded, and only 2 scored. Heading into the match, Ajax were only 3 points ahead of the Scottish Giants. However, it was evident on the night that the Dutch outfit were streets ahead of their group stage counterparts as they strolled to a 3-1 away victory. Van Bronckhorst did cite the league assistance for the Dutch ahead of the match, but stopped short of calling on the SPFL for more help for clubs competing in Europe. The Eredivisie club were given a free weekend ahead of the trip to Ibrox, while Rangers battled to victory over Aberdeen on Saturday afternoon. James Tavernier had suggested there was a lack of fight and hunger from Rangers, when compared to that of their Champions League opposition. And challenged on the claim from his captain, the manager responded, "They had 6 days off. Their league is thinking about their players, so they played the last game last week on Wednesday and came here really fresh. We, of course, played a game and have some injuries, so it was tough. We tried, but these are teams who are competing for several years on this level." Pushed on whether Scottish clubs need more help to challenge in Europe, the Rangers boss added, "I mean helping. That's from the league. They haven't had a game on the weekend. That's the difference. I don't say we need help. I just say they had a free weekend." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Rangers achieve another unwanted Champions League record. Report by Mark Walker. Rangers have achieved another unwanted record from their dismal Champions League group stage. Their shot-shy strikers had the least attempt on goal out of all 32 teams and the least shots on target. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's side became embarrassing history makers this week after officially being the worst ever team in the Champions League since it was revamped in 1992, following their 6 defeats and a goal difference of -20. And after the final games in the groups were played last night, it was revealed that Rangers only managed 44 attempts at goal in their 6 games, and of those they only managed 12 on target, a pitiful 2 per game. They were 3 behind the second worst team Shakhtar Donetsk, who may only have managed 15 shots on target, but they scored 8 goals and finished ahead of Celtic. Celtic were 13th on the list of the 32 teams of shots on target, with 29, and were 12th in the standings with 82 attempts, almost double that of Rangers. Other figures showed the old firm's possession stats were very close, with Celtic 28th with 44.2%, and Rangers were 29th with 40.7%. However, Celtic were actually in 8th place, with a passing accuracy of 87.5%, ahead of teams like Napoli, Liverpool and Juventus. But Rangers' passing accuracy was 4th bottom on the list at 79.5%. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Barisic eyes Rangers Champions League return. Report by Chris Jack. Rangers punched above their weight in the Europa League. The step up a division alongside the real heavyweights has delivered a knockout blow. The coming days will see Giovanni Van Bronckhorst attempt to lift his side off the canvas and ensure that they come out swinging in their 3 remaining Premiership fixtures before the World Cup break. But the full analysis of just where Rangers are and why this continental campaign has gone so badly wrong will be a longer process to conclude, as the blood is wiped from noses and the smelling salts used. On and off the park, it will be a period of soul-searching at Ibrox. The simple, all-encapsulating answer is that Rangers are just not cut out for the highest level of European competition right now. Yet the issues, ranging from tactics to transfers, will not be lumped together by a support that have suffered too many blows over recent weeks. Rangers have gone from the brink of Europa League glory to becoming the worst performing side in the history of the Champions League, and defeat to Ajax on Tuesday night was another humbling occasion for Van Bronckhorst and his players. Overcoming Ajax, never mind Liverpool and Napoli, was always going to be a tough task. Ultimately, defender Borna Barisic admits it was an impossible mission for Rangers. Barisic said, "I cannot be happy because we lost against a good side. We wanted to take a positive result to end the Champions League, and we are disappointed. Not many positives. We are disappointed. We wanted to play in the Champions League. We qualified, which was a good thing, and we wanted to enjoy it. But it was a very tough campaign for us. We learned a lot. We want to achieve it next year and be better. It did not happen because this is Champions League. It's another level. No one expected that we would do well in the Europa League, and we go into the Champions League and try to play our part. I mean, there are clubs with squads of 400, 500, 600 million pounds. Our group was very tough, but we need to respect the opponent and talk about that also. We tried, we learned. We are not happy because of this. This is Champions League, not Europa League. And also, if we are talking about last year, the final was a big achievement if you look at which squads we play. The road to Seville saw Rangers triumph against Borussia Dortmund, Red Star Belgrade, Braga and RB Leipzig before they fell agonizingly short and were beaten by Eintracht Frankfurt. It was a run that enhanced individual and collective reputations, but the full good factor from that historic achievement has now been swept away by a Group A campaign that saw Van Bronckhorst's side finish pointless and with the ignominy of a -20 goal difference. Expectations were raised last term. The new bar proved to be out with the reach of a squad that has had issues to contend with throughout the section. Barisic said, "With all due respect, I don't think Dortmund are better than Napoli or Liverpool or even Ajax. That's my opinion at this moment. We can now analyse all night what's happened, but we also have a lot of injured players. It's not easy to play on 3 fronts with the squad. You watch it on TV. I don't think many of us had played Champions League, maybe 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. When you watch on TV, it is something else compared to when you play. And then you have all the injured players. It is not an excuse, but that's the reality. We are playing against teams that are 4, 5, 6 times more expensive than us. We need to be realistic, but we learned a lot, and we want to achieve that next year. With more experience, we will be better." The Champions League has been chastening for Rangers, but the trials and tribulations cannot put them off the competition forever, and the target must be to return as soon as possible. There is a sound argument to say that the second tier of European action is where Rangers, and Celtic for that matter, should set their sights and where they would be comfortable and competitive. But these tortuous 6 fixtures have only served to whet the appetite for Barisic as focus shifts to the race to become champions of Scotland and, in turn, secure a seat at the top table next term. Barisic, when asked if this campaign has made him hungrier to return as soon as possible, said, "Of course. When you experience Champions League, you want to play it again next year. We will do everything to be there." It's hard to say if the Europa League is the level for Scottish football. Sometimes results show you. They are not the same level, you can see that. We also had a very hard group, and we have not been at that level. You can see our results. That's the reality. They are just better than us. I agree with you that we need to kick on now. That's the one thing that we need to do. I think that every time when we played Champions League and we lose a game, of course we are disappointed, not just physically, but you are tired. Mentally, you know they are tough teams, But whenever you lose, you don't feel good. We need to clear our heads. We need to put it to one side. Champions League is unfortunately finished for us. We need now to look forward to leagues and cups. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Juranovic brands Real Madrid keeper one of the best in the world. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Celtic right-back Josip Juranovic admitted he was denied a goal against Real Madrid by one of the best goalkeepers in world football, Belgian international Thibaut Courtois. Juranovic had scored all 5 penalties that he had taken for the Scottish champions before the Champions League match in the Bernabeu, and the Parkhead supporters who had travelled to Spain to see the Group F game against the holders were certain he would net the spot kick the visitors were awarded when Ferland Mendy brought down Lille Abada. However, Courtois, who denied Kyogo Furuhashi, Rio Hatate and Georgios Giacomakis during the 90 minutes, got his left hand to the Croatian defender's effort. Said Juranovic, "It was a great save. What can I say? Courtois is one of the best goalkeepers and he read me. It doesn't matter, it happened." The 27-year-old felt that Celtic were unfortunate to have 2 penalties awarded against them when referee Stefani Frappart ruled that Moritz Jens and Matt O'Reilly had handled. Luke Modric and Rodrigo both converted from 12 yards to put Madrid in a commanding position at half-time. He said, "What can we do? It was unlucky. It was protecting the body and unlucky for us." Juranovic felt that Celtic acquitted themselves well against the 14-time Champions League winners and could hold their heads high at the end of the 90 minutes. He is confident that Ange Postecoglou's team will be better placed to reach the knockout rounds next season if they retain the cinched Premiership this term. He said, "I think that we had some chances, but that is Real Madrid, and we need to be proud that we showed that we wanted to play football here. That's it. We are coming back next year stronger. We were trying from the goalkeeper to the attackers to play passes, and we keep that mentality. If we continue like that, we will be back stronger." Meanwhile, Celtic keeper Joe Hart rails against VAR penalty decisions. The big keeper defended teammates Jens and O'Reilly after the duo were penalised by VAR and conceded the 2 first-half penalties. Hart told BT Sport after the game, "I don't think either of them intentionally used their hand. I think that goes without saying. Matt said that his hands were inside his body and it hit him. What do they want to do? Chop his arms off? Obviously Moritz just slightly misjudged one, and then it hit his hand. I'm not going to sit here and moan about penalties. We've just been beaten 5-1 by a very good team. That does set the tone, but we got a penalty and we missed it. So there you go." Evening Times Sport, November 3. David Martindale hits back at Celtic plastic pitch complaints. Report by Ewan Payton. Livingston boss David Martindale has responded to Ange Postecoglou's complaints about his side's plastic pitch. The Celtic manager revealed that the artificial surface did his stand-in captain Cameron Carter-Vickers no favours ahead of their Champions League tie with Real Madrid. The American international was subsequently left out of the 5-1 defeat in the Spanish capital. Pre-match, Postecoglou commented, "The artificial pitch was not great for him. so we left him at home. Martindale wants to know what about the pitch has caused the powerful defender to feel sore. He told the press, "I cannot speak for the medical staff at Celtic, but what are we basing this on? The park's too hard? The park's too soft? Where is the assumption coming from? I don't know. Surely you can't just say that because it's plastic you pick up more injuries. Yes, it's different. But what is the difference? It would be good to get a study on that. I look at the hybrid pitches, and there are a lot of injuries happening on them because they're very hard and there's not a lot of give on them. If you look at the English Premier League, when someone scores and does a knee slide, there's never a divot. I get Angie's frustration because they're elite level and we're not. If I could have Motherwell's surface and a training facility, I'd take it all day long over the plastic. But do I think it leads to recurring injuries? I'm not so sure. I think sometimes it can be an easy rationale as to why someone is injured. Where are all my players' injuries from playing and training on a plastic pitch? And if it's because of a change of surface, why am I not picking up injuries when we play away on grass parks? It's up for debate. And where do Celtic B play their games? On a plastic park, so it can't be that bad. What is it about a plastic park that supposedly leads to more injuries? We have an £80,000 shock pad under our surface. These are things that people don't know. If you were to do tests on grass, hybrid and astro with a shock pad, I'd like to see what it comes back with. Asked about the Dutch top flight banishing the artificial surfaces, the Livy boss pointed out that this was not because of increased injury risks. He added, "Is that more of a marketing or commercial opportunity in terms of marketing their own product, or is it injury prevention? My understanding is that the Dutch taking them out has nothing to do with injuries. We don't make money from the plastic park, but we probably save around £100,000 to £150,000 a year on training facilities. Where would my academy train? Where would we train? If I need new training facilities, where's the gym? Where's the canteen? The injury prehab? Do we have to jump on a bus and travel 20 minutes every day? It's not as simplistic as just saying, change the park, but go and get me an owner who wants to put a few £1,000,000 into the club every year. There are some clubs we don't look forward to going to from March onwards because of the state of their pitch. Can I see them coming out of Scottish football? I don't see it changing in Scotland in the short term. How many teams out with the Premiership have a plastic park? About 30%. It's then becoming about sporting elite as opposed to sporting integrity. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Jota opens up on emotional Real Madrid celebration. Report by David Irvin. Jota has branded his free-kick strike against Real Madrid as one of the best moments of his life. The Celtic winger climbed off the bench to fire home a consolation strike for Ange Postecoglou's side at the Santiago Bernabeu. While the game was well over when Jota found the top corner with a stunning free-kick, the winger has named the moment as one of the best in his career to date. The Celtic star was visibly emotional as he celebrated in front of Celtic supporters after the superb finish, and he revealed his family were in the stands to see the goal that he's dreamed of scoring since he was a boy. Quoted in the Daily Record, Jota explained, "I think this was one of the best moments of my life. As a kid, I always looked for the teams and the stages to come here and score a goal. I think it's a very important moment for me and for my family. And they were in the stands, so they could see this in local. So I'm very happy for this. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Postecoglou shares Celtic pride. Report by David Irvin. Ange Postecoglou shared his pride after watching his Celtic players keep playing their style of football despite a heavy defeat to Real Madrid. The Celtic boss was pleased to see his players not alter their play style against the reigning Champions League winners. However, Postecoglou did concede his team were beaten by the better team in Spain. I never fear the worst because we're still trying to play. I'm really proud of our players, said Postecoglou after the Champions League group stage loss. I mean, we've lost 5-1, and we understand it against a fantastic football team, but the players never stopped trying to play. They created, I don't know how many chances, but Courtois was outstanding. So I don't fear for anything with this group of players. You know, at the end of the day, we've lost to a very good football team, but I'm still proud of their efforts. The Celtic boss reckons his side will be difficult to compete against domestically if they match their performance levels from the Champions League campaign. Despite just taking 2 points from the 6 group stage matches, Celtic impressed in spells against Real Madrid, RB Leipzig and Shakhtar Donetsk. For Postecoglou, the Champions League experience will only benefit his players, as he insisted they'll be hard to match in the Scottish Premiership if they carry their performance level from European competition into domestic action. He said, if we perform like that, like we have been, then we will be hard to stop in the league. It took an enormous effort for our boys to try and match it with one of the best football teams in the world. But if we go in there with that intent every week, we will be hard to stop. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, November 3. Spanish media reacts to Real Madrid win over Celtic. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic's Champions League campaign came to an end last night in Spain. Real Madrid ran out comfortable 5-1 winners at the Bernabeu as the European kings turned on the style against Ange Postecoglou's side. It was the final fixture in Group F. While Celtic ended the section on only 2 points, there have been plenty of positives for the Hoops to take. The main difference between Celtic and their group opponents, aside from finances, was the clinical cutting edge they all had in the final third. Celtic scored once in Madrid, thanks to a stunning Jota free kick, but they had plenty of other chances, including a missed penalty. Real, who were undoubtedly the better team, put the Scottish champions to the sword. However, while the stats suggest Celtic made a good fist of the game, Spanish media claim it was a stroll in the park for the La Liga giants. El País praised Celtic, but said they were put in their place and wrote, Celtic are a team that flows with grace. They are reluctant to simply assume their episodic role among the elite. It unfolded with ease. Madrid responded viciously to each march forward of the Glasgow team. Although El Mundo were less than complimentary, they said a poor Celtic made a fool of themselves in Chamartin and finally led to a Madrid win. La Vanguardia wrote, Celtic, who have not won a Champions League game since 2017, were the perfect opponent for a quiet night. Madrid was already winning after 5 minutes due to a penalty committed by Jens and which Modric converted. El Correa hailed the travelling Celtic support and said, "Beyond the colour, the chants, and the huge consumption of beer by a crowd that left its mark in Madrid without unpleasant episodes, the Chamartin team needed a win to avoid unnecessary trouble and seal their presence in the round of 16 draw as seeded as well as the only defender of Spanish pride. The setbacks against Shakhtar in Warsaw and against Leipzig on German soil did not invite excessive confidence, and there was none. Madrid achieved the goal with no room for doubt, capturing the huge difference in punch on the green of the Bernabeu." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 4. Sydney Super Cup kick-off time change. Report by Ewan Payton. The kick-off time for Celtic's friendly match against Everton this month has been changed. The Hoops will travel to Australia later in November to take part in the Sydney Super Cup. Ange Postecoglou will return to his homeland Down Under during the World Cup break. Celtic will use the opportunity to play friendly matches during the 5-week mid-season pause to keep the players ticking over ahead of the restart just prior to Christmas. They will take on Everton in Sydney's Accor Stadium on Sunday, November 20, and the kick-off time for that game has been moved to an earlier local time of 2:45 p.m. 3:45 a.m. UK time. The match was originally scheduled to take place at 8:05 p.m. local time. It is part of a 3-match series, which will also see Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers compete with the Scottish and English Giants. The Hoops' first match comes against the former on November 17 at the newly opened Alliance Stadium. The new Sydney Super Cup will be a biannual football event held in Sydney, which will bring some of Europe's top teams to New South Wales every 2 years. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 4. Madrid residents fume as Celtic party leaves 12-ton mountain of rubbish. Report by Mark Walker. Celtic fans dumped an astonishing 12 tons of rubbish on one of Madrid's main squares ahead of their Champions League defeat in Spain. Thousands of Hoops fans descended on the Spanish capital ahead of this week's 5-1 hammering by the European champions at the Bernabeu. Many fans gathered at Madrid's Plaza Mayor ahead of the game, and the incredible amount of litter left has now been confirmed by the Spanish authorities. Madrid City Council's urgent cleaning service stated, "We collected a total of 12 tons of waste from Plaza Mayor after the visit from fans of Celtic." And Madrid's council's security and emergency spokesman, Immaculada Saris, revealed they will consider banning fans from the area because of the mess created. He said, "We had a joint collaboration with the police for the visit of Celtic supporters, as we do for all high-risk games. In the future, we will meet with residents in the area so this cannot happen again. The people who live here are not happy. It is something we need to look at for the next high-risk game." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, November 4. Postecoglou prepared to sell players to make Celtic a force in Europe. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Ange Postecoglou has admitted that he is prepared to sell players in order to make Celtic more of a force in Europe in the wake of the Parkhead club's exit from the Champions League. The Scottish champions slumped to a 5-1 defeat to Spanish holders Real Madrid in their final Group F match in the Bernabeu on Wednesday night. The heavy loss brought an end to a disappointing campaign. The Glasgow outfit finished bottom of the section and missed out on the Europa League preliminary round, despite performing well in all of their matches. Postecoglou is hopeful the experience which his charges have gained in Europe's premier club competition will help them to make a far bigger impact if they retain the cinched Premiership and return next season. The Greek-Australian coach has acknowledged that he could lose some of his first-team regulars before Celtic play in the Champions League again. However, he understands that directors have successfully balanced the books for years by offloading outstanding players for large profits, and believes that doing so again will give him a chance to strengthen his squad. He said, "I think it is an opportunity. If our players do well and move on to so-called greener pastures, if that is what they want, then there is an opportunity for me to improve the team. Because if they are going to leave us, we are going to get some revenue in. I don't fear losing our players. I see that as part of the process. If you look at clubs who do well at Champions League level that are our size, what do? They develop players, sell them on, and replace them with better versions, hopefully. That is where I think our growth lies. I think it is part of the process. I don't fear that. I think that has to happen for us to grow. We need to be bringing money in to be able to keep bringing better players to our football club." Postecoglou has done well in the transfer market since being appointed last year. Joe Hart, Josip Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Carol Starfelt, Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, Jota, Lil Abada, Kyogo Furuhashi, Dazan Maeda, and Georgios Giacomakis have all performed brilliantly for Celtic. He appreciates that he has to use the funds which he receives to spend on players wisely, and has, amid mounting speculation that he could land Japanese defender Yuki Kobayashi, pledged not to squander money in future. He said, "There have been a couple of managers talking about the fact that we spend a lot of money in the transfer market, but we have 60,000 people coming to our games every week. They don't expect their money to be put in my pocket and just sit in the bank somewhere. My responsibility is to make sure that their hard-earned gets invested wisely so that they can be proud of their football team. That is a responsibility. From the outside, sometimes people think, just spend money. But there's a massive responsibility there." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, November 4. Celtic, Rangers and Hearts European campaigns and their coefficient effect. Report by Ewan Payton. Scotland's coefficient has been flying in recent years. Unfortunately, this season it has taken a bit of a blow due to the performance of Scottish clubs in Europe. But it's definitely not all bad news at this stage. Scotland still holds its top 10 spot in the UEFA coefficient rankings, despite some pretty poor results from Celtic, Rangers and Hearts, as well as Dundee United and Motherwell in the summer. The nation has moved down one spot though, from 8th to 9th, so our teams must be careful not to drop out of that section. If they were to drop out of the top 10, then that's where things become more difficult for Scottish clubs to qualify for European competitions once more. This season, because of that coveted top 10 spot, Celtic automatically qualified for the group stages of the Champions League, while Rangers had one less qualifier to play. They, of course, made it through to the groups also. Furthermore, Hearts were guaranteed a Europa League playoff, albeit they lost to Zurich and dropped into the Conference League. It's been tough going on from there, with just 2 wins registered by a Scottish side. Hearts managed both of those in the conference. Rangers lost all 6 of their group games, while Celtic did manage to muster up 2 draws. Overall, these poor results have reflected on Scotland's coefficient. Just 3.5 points have been added to the ranking. Individual contributions are as follows: Rangers 6.5, Celtic 6, Hearts 4, Dundee United 1, Motherwell 0. The club's individual returns are divided by 5, the number of teams entered into UEFA competitions, to arrive at the 3.5 figure. This leaves the overall coefficient score at 36.400. So despite losing all their games, Rangers finished as Scotland's highest contributors. However, they did play at least 3 more matches than every other club, due to their qualifiers in August. As has been shown, while our clubs qualifying for the Champions League is a positive, getting results when there to keep the coefficient riding high has proved tough. As a result, Belgium have jumped into 8th spot, leaving Scotland in 9th. Austria are in 10th, but like Scotland, all 6 of their representatives have been eliminated. Austria currently sit on 33,600 points to Scotland's 36,400, so they're still some way off overtaking. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, November 7. The Monday kick-off. Celtic fans will have to wait to see if Haksabanovic is the real deal. Report by James Morgan. Since his arrival in Scottish football, there has been plenty to like about Shade Haksabanovic. He has that ability to glide past players with poise and balance, even if at times there is a propensity, as is often the case with wide players, to overdo it a little. The one question mark over his game has been his ability to make a decisive impression on a game. In his previous 14 appearances for Celtic across the Premiership and Champions League, his goal contributions had amounted to just 1 assist, his cross for James Forrest in last month's 6-1 trouncing of Hibs at Parkhead. There has been precious little else to shout about, and the overriding suspicion has been that the winger's end product is lacking. That was before Saturday, however, when Haksabanovic, whose squad number is number 9, provided a goal return that was certainly worthy of a centre-forward. His first against Dundee United was a typical striker's finish, arriving at the back post to steer Jota's cross over the line. The second was less so, and required a degree of good fortune, with the United goalkeeper fumbling the shot over the line. It might have taken him until his 15th match to open his account for Celtic, but it should be noted that the length of his barren run is out of character when set against all that has come before. The double on Saturday took his career goals to 43, while his 42 assists combined for a ratio that means he produces 1 goal contribution in every 2.4 matches. Alas, with the World Cup break on the horizon, Celtic fans will have to wait to discover whether this is the start of a more productive run for the 23-year-old, or merely a blip in the universe. A thank you to the Murrays. The Billie Jean Cup, previously the Federation Cup, is the biggest international team competition in women's sport, with more than 100 teams entering annually. It says plenty about the impact Andy, Jamie and Judy Murray have had on global tennis, that this year's tournament, featuring the 16 best teams in the world, is taking place in Glasgow this week. It gives Scottish tennis fans, whose vast numbers the Murrays can also take the credit for, the chance to watch the sport's best female players in the world in action, but is also an opportunity to note the contribution that all three, considered and vocal supporters of women's tennis, have made to the game. As Billie Jean, arguably the greatest female tennis player of all time, noted last week, maybe it will ignite some child in their heart and mind to want to play and be a champion. I hope it really inspires some young person in the stands. It is an opportunity for us to thank Judy Murray and Andy and Jamie for what they've done for tennis. Judy is a positive, great force. Listen to her. Do what she asks because she understands every facet of the sport. Andy has been a great ally to women. He believes in equality. He's amazing in that regard. He gets it. Look at how he was raised. He sees how his mother continues to work for our sport. What's on TV? The first round proper of the FA Cup took place in England over the weekend. Mopping up the rest of the ties is a match tonight that pits an Ipswich Town side containing a number of familiar faces to Scottish football fans up against non-league Bracknell Town from the Southern League on the 7th rung of the English pyramid, STV 7:45 p.m. Ipswich, previous winners of the FA Cup, and at one time in the late 70s and early 80s something of a heavyweight in English football, have fallen on harder times in recent years and reside in Sky Bet League One. However, following the appointment of former Manchester United assistant manager Kieran McKenna, there has been an upturn in fortunes, with the Suffolk side sitting in second place. Portman Road has become something of a rescue home for former SPFL players, with former Rangers trio George Edmonston, Dominic Ball and Sonny Aluko, and ex-Aberdeen fullback Greg Lee, all making contributions for McKenna's side this season. Ireland, a shining example to Scotland. It feels as if every week the Monday kick-off has some kind of pop at Scottish rugby, and this week promises to be no different. Yes, there was a 28-12 weekend victory against Fiji, but it was not the kind of landslide triumph over the 12th ranked nation in the world that it should have been. On the contrary, it was indisciplined and jittery, and certainly not a performance that takes Scotland into their match against New Zealand at Murrayfield on Sunday with any real vigour or sense of expectation, although the potential return of Finn Russell following an injury to Adam Hastings might alter that mindset, even if it is unlikely to change what will, in all probability, be another Scotland defeat. The All Blacks walloped Wales in Cardiff on Saturday and have won their last 5 test matches in succession, but they have also slid to an unheard of 4th in the world rankings, having been beaten by Ireland 3 times in a year, home and away, and also lost to France, South Africa and Argentina in the same time frame. Whether it is in the European game or on the international stage, Ireland, a country with similar resources to Scotland, have shown in recent years what can be achieved with proper joined-up thinking, organisation and a commitment to being the best. Andy Farrell's side sit at number 1 in the world and beat the world champions South Africa in Dublin at the weekend, the latest in a run of results that Scotland could only dream about recording against one of rugby's traditional powerhouses. Ayr's chance to lay down a marker. Ayr United face a trip to bottom-placed Hamilton, who have won only once in their previous 9 games, on Friday night at 7:45 p.m. at New Douglas Park and on BBC iPlayer, when a win will almost certainly guarantee them top spot until the first week of December, with Scottish Cup action on the horizon at the end of the month. Ayr's goal difference is vastly superior to that of fellow title chasers Morton, Raith Rovers, Dundee and Inverness, so there is little chance of them being overhauled until then, but winning will require them to continue the trend of rectifying the indifferent recent away form that brought 2 defeats in the last 3, but which showed marked signs of improvement in a 2-0 win at Arbroath last weekend. 11. The number of years Scottish women's golf has had to wait for a winner on the LPGA Tour before Gemma Dryburgh's victory at the Japan Classic yesterday. Report by James Morgan. Evening Times Sport, November 7. Van Bronckhorst discusses Rangers' future. Report by Chris Jack. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst vowed to fight on as Rangers manager after admitting the pressure is building on his position at Ibrox. The Dutchman saw his side slump to a 2-1 defeat to St Johnstone yesterday, as goals from James Brown and Nicky Clark clinched a famous win at McDermott Park. Rangers are now 7 points adrift of Celtic in the Premiership title race, and Van Bronckhorst's side were once again booed off the park by a furious support. This defeat will only increase the debate surrounding Van Bronckhorst's future ahead of the visit of Hearts and trip to St Mirren before the World Cup break. Of course, I have said it many times, Van Bronckhorst said when asked if he could understand the reaction from supporters. If you lose 2-1 against St Johnstone away, for me there is no excuse. It is already pressure on my position. Of course a defeat doesn't help, but we have to continue. It is a tough one to take, and the loss we had. We have to rally against Hearts, of course. We are very disappointed with the result, and we need to look forward. It is always difficult to take losses, especially when you are the manager and player of a big club. You are expected to win, that is obvious, and if you don't win, you are very disappointed. Of course, the determination is always there, but you see, if you work hard, that is all you can do. It doesn't mean you always win matches. You have to prepare the team well, and today, especially the first half hour, we did really well. In the end, we played more against ourselves than the opponent. Of course, results are a worry. If you drop points, it is always disappointing. At home to Livingston, we lost 2 points, and today we have lost 3 points. So that's 5 points in 3 league games. Obviously, people are not happy, and we are not happy. It is what it is at the moment. Report by Chris Jack.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.